of more important issues, is everyone aware that every year about 36,000 Nigerian women die in pregnancy or during delivery? That is more than 10% of the world's mortality rate. All over the world, about 343,000 women die in pregnancy or childbirth worldwide. 36,000 of these deaths occur in Nigeria every year. This means that every single day in Nigeria, about 100 women die during pregnancy or delivery. Sometimes as many as 140 Nigerian women die in one day. Keep in mind, by the way, that more than 5,500 of these 36,000 deaths occur among teenage mothers. In fact, Jigawa State has the highest mortality rate in all of Nigeria. Not only that, Nigeria has the worst infant mortality rate in all of Africa and the second worst infant mortality rate in the whole world. About 1 million babies die each year all over the world, and of this, 241,000 babies die in Nigeria alone every year. Many deaths occur at home and are therefore unseen and uncounted in official statistics, but more than 241,000 babies die in Nigeria alone. Which is why Nigeria was considered the worst place on earth to be born. Yeah. And you know, there are so many factors to consider. Corruption has affected us in more ways than we would ever think. Little things are affecting us. One of the midwives that was interviewed about this story said something that is very important for us to always remember.
There's no electricity. So, you know, when they bring a labor in the night, what do? We can't just leave the woman to just go like that. Since we have torchlights, I have my other colleague, they will assist.
How do you deliver a baby with flashlight? Flashlight! I can't process this in my mind. Just imagine child delivery in the middle of the night with nothing but torchlight. How do these people live? So when we are shouting that the government needs to fix electricity, it's not just so that we can watch TV or something. It's because we're losing lives every day due to lack of electricity. You know how many babies would have been saved if they have electricity in all these hospitals? And not only that, selective development is killing us. We have doctors and hospitals all over big cities, but we neglect rural areas. Why?
There is dearth of facilities and even the personnel. You see a situation where you have 1,000 doctors in Abuja city alone. And if you go to all the area councils, you may not have up to 2-3 doctors.
Millions of people die because of this. Another thing that we don't talk about much, and it's very rampant in Nigeria, VVF. And this happens when a mother-to-be has been in labor for way too long. It's very rampant among teenage girls that were married off at tender age. Let's take a look at this.
She would not give us her name, but her condition is shared by thousands of Nigerians. Vesicovaginal fistula. Still a child and a young bride, she lost her baby a few days ago and now suffers from vesicovaginal fistula, popularly known as VVF. It is a medical condition which occurs when the blood supply to the tissues of the vagina and the bladder are restricted during prolonged obstructed labor. She walks around with a catheter due to urinary incontinence. It is estimated that about 80,000 new cases are recorded annually in Nigeria. According to Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Health, more than 500,000 women live with VVF, and that is just a conservative estimate and not accounting for the number of infant lives lost. VVF is not getting much airtime, and connections to infant mortality are not widely publicized.
Yeah, keep in mind that there are more than 500,000 women like that. When they walk around with their plastic latrine because, you know, they can't help themselves, they have to go all the time, they have something attached to their private parts. It's very, very sad, and these girls are suffering. And the worst part of it is that after they are diagnosed with VVF, they treat them like outcasts. If you're able, there's this movie by Stephanie Linus called Dry, and this movie is all about how about 2 million Nigerian girls are suffering in silence. If you're able to watch it, please do. It's very, very educative. I would think that these are some of the issues that the Nigerian government will focus on right now. Which brings me to the National Health Insurance Scheme that was launched 16 years ago for public servants as well as workers in the private sector. Where are the billions of naira earmarked for public health care in Nigeria? Who's getting all this money? I'm sure that you're all aware that thousands of people are detained in hospitals all over Nigeria because they cannot afford their medical treatment. That's why I was asking about the National Healthcare Scheme. Where is all the money going to? Just because they can't afford their medical treatment. And we have so many health management organizations. The problem is, these health management organizations, we call them HMOs, they actually collude with hospitals to treat their clients with cheap drugs. They also mandate hospitals not to treat specific ailments if such treatment would attract high cost. In other words, like this article is saying, if you have malaria fever, for example, the insurance only guarantees you getting cheap drugs, which may only suppress the illness. So that means that you will keep going back to the hospital. Just imagine how ridiculous that is. If you ask me, that is very, very wicked. There are all kinds of stories. Some of these women have been detained for months in the hospital, and for so many of them, it's so unfortunate that it leads to death, such as the case of Mrs. Folake Udioyi. I'm very sure that many of you know her story. A mother of 4 who gave birth to her last child at a private hospital in Lagos, and then she had some complications and they had to rush her to Luth, that is Lagos State Teaching Hospital. They did surgery and she was well, she was perfectly fine. During the surgery and all that, the husband had spent about 1 million naira the whole time that they were doing the surgery at Luth. And then after his wife was officially discharged by the hospital, he was issued another bill of about 1.3 million naira. The husband couldn't raise the money, the 1.3 million, but he was able to raise 300,000, and he arranged with the hospital for him to be paying the remaining 1 million naira in installment. But guess what? They still refused to let her go. They insisted that he must have guarantors, and he brought guarantors. They said no, it has to be guarantors from inside the hospital. Just imagine how ridiculous that is. The wife spent 45 days at this hospital, although she had been discharged, but they refused to let her go. And by the way, during these 45 days that she was in the hospital, she developed other complications, and then they refused to treat her because she had not balanced her debt. So they refused to treat her, and they didn't let her go for treatment in other places because she hadn't paid her balance. Imagine that. The husband spent every night of the 45 nights with her in the hospital because the nurses were on strike. There was nobody to care for her. This is a woman that just gave birth and that has had complications and surgeries after giving birth. The husband was the one beside her every day, every night for the 45 nights that she was in the hospital. And guess how painful it is that she died. Upon all that, she died. They were watching her. They let her die in Luth at a government-owned hospital just because she couldn't pay her bill. This is murder. And of course, people protested, but hey, nothing has come out of it. There are all kinds of stories that you guys can read online. Where is the Nigerian government with all this issue going on? Anyway, I don't want to get upset, but Mrs. Folake's case is just one case, and there are so many women that we are not even aware of. You guys know I don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real.